So greetings to everyone. Today, I've gotten a lot of requests to go over some of the basics, especially some of the ninefold breathing techniques, offering mudras, refuge, verses of bodhicitta, and whatnot. And we'll be going over all of this in more detail in time. But I wanted to go over some of the basics now as you begin your sadhanas. Those who are practicing Tara, and those who will be practicing Tara in conjunction with Ordi and Minla, or one or the other, as we train and we go about this process of understanding what Tantric sorcery is in Vajrayana Buddhism. So, at least as it is in these Himalayan countries and root sources. So first of all, let's talk about something that I mentioned on Saturday, and that was the ninefold breathing. So some of you will know this, some of you won't. There's many types of ninefold breathing. The one that I'm going to teach now comes from the Anu Yoga, and it is one that I do on a daily or multi-time per day basis, but there's others, and Federico can show those as he has time or wants to, within the other lineages. There are some within the Shenpa Kagyu or the Dakpo Kagyu, within the Mahayoga lineages of the Nyingma. Various monasteries have their own particular ways of doing both the ninefold breathing and the offering mudras and all of this. And it exists within different yogic traditions in different ways. But for those that don't know, let's go over what the ninefold breathing is. So it's based on the inner tantric theory of the channels, winds, and drops. And those that stay and train with us will get much more instruction on this. Yeah. But the short instruction here for the basics is that the inner subtle body has channels, and within those channels are these channel knots, and there's thousands and thousands of channel knots at different places. And the winds of the body that make up one's own vitality and energy, also known as prana, runs through these channels, and one's health depends on the state of these winds, these channels, and the channel knots. At the channel knots, the main ones are the 5 ones at the 5 points of the body, but the main channels are the central channel and the 2 side channels. And of course, we'll go over this more, but essentially, the central channel is the channel through which one's own awareness flows. And therefore, if it's blocked, if it's in bad condition, one not only has bad health, but other poor medical conditions can come about. One does not have clarity in practice to work with the spirits or the deities. One may be blocked in various ways. So the central channel is of primary importance because it's said that all of our conscious experience flows from there, as well as the bindu points within the central channel. And then there's the side channels. And the side channels are said to be the male and female, the sun and the moon. So the central channel is white, and the side channels are red and white. The central channel is blue, excuse me. Sometimes it's said to have an outer blue and an inner red exterior, but there's lots of different traditions. And the side channels are white and red. For the purpose of Vajra breathing, just imagine that your body is pure and that the central channel itself is like a strong reed, full of absolute purity. If you know it, it's fine to visualize the side channels. But it's best, in the simple way, to visualize the body itself as a pure container, like a pure crystalline vase. And one's channels, winds, and drops all radiate out beautifully. All right. So the purpose of the ninefold breathing is to purify and clear these channels so that one's mind is in the best possible position to practice. So that is done through breathing and through certain movements of the hands and the arms and closing nasal passages. It's called the ninefold breathing because it has 9 specific parts, 9 breaths. So with the first, we're going to, and it said that you can switch this for male or female or however, and whichever you identify, which channels are predominant. You can switch this order if you like, but generally this is how it's done, and it'll be effective if you do it this way. If you want to switch it, if you want to tailor it to your own disposition, we can talk later. But first, you would bring the arm and hand up all the way to the side like you're making a long movement, bringing the hand up like this, and closing the right nostril, right, with the middle finger. Now there's some traditions where when you bring it up, you move 3 times and then close the nostril. You may do this too. This is to purify the side channels 3 times and release the winds and the blockages that are in the particular bindu points in the subtle body. But it's okay just to bring it all the way to the side and up and around. Now when you're doing this, you want to breathe in. So when you breathe in, you need to imagine all of the purity of the 5 elements that pervade space is breathed in to your inner channels. It goes to the side channels, it comes up the side channels, like behind the eyes, down, and then slightly below the navel, the 5 elements, they enter the central channel, and from there they radiate out, and they purify all of the other channels. When you're breathing out, you can imagine that black smoke, sludge, scorpions, and diabolical insects and spirits in the body that are harming the law or the 5 gods that exist within the body are expelled and completely dissolved into space. So you want to bring your arm up in a full flowing movement, yeah? And then when you breathe out, you bring your elbow down to push out the winds from the side channel, and then you bring your arm and hand down and imagine that that side channel is totally relaxed. And then you do that on the other side. So you repeat this process. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 times, 3 times on each side. And what it does, it'll open up the lunar side, the currents and the winds, and it'll open up the solar side of the winds and the paths within the body. And then as you push out, you purify it all. The purified lights come into the central channel and balance the 5 winds 6 times. And then to fully balance the central channel and all the channels, you can breathe in, same visualization, and as you breathe out, you lean forward. Now, when you lean forward, you need to, as much as possible, press the navel and the muscles of the abdomen back against the lower spine as you push forward. So you're pressing the winds as much as possible up through the central channel and purifying. So you purify the lunar channel, you purify the solar channel, and you purify the union of both. So if you want to practice together, let's do that. So this is the ninefold breathing. Now, if you know Guru Yoga, you would do the simple Guru Yoga of the white Ah previous to this. Now, this is an introduction to Dzogchen that I will give eventually. Uh, Very simple, but for now, it's good to start with the ninefold breathing. Now, let's talk about the clarification of the elements. So each of the mantras that I used on Saturday purified one of the elements within the body and within the external environment in order to prepare it better for practice. The syllables to these elements are seen in the heart, either as the symbol, the bija for the element of itself, such as e for space, or as the elemental color reflected from an ah syllable in the heart. Or if you have trouble visualizing, you can visualize the drop in its correct color. Now I used the shortened version of the elemental mantras. Om e ho shuddhe shuddhe. Yam ho shuddhe shuddhe. But if you want to do the long form, it's possible to use the full elemental mantra for each element. So Om e ho shuddhe shuddhe shodanaye soha. Om yam ho shuddhe shuddhe shodanaye soha. Om ram ho shuddhe shuddhe shodanaye soha. Om bam ho shuddhe shuddhe shodanaye soha. Om lam ho shuddhe shuddhe shodanaye soha. Om lam ho shuddhe shuddhe shodanaye soha. And then you would do them all at once. Om e yam ram bam lam shuddhe shodanaye soha. Om e yam ram bam lam shuddhe shodanaye soha. E is dark blue like the expanse of space. Yam is a vibrant green, like things growing through the power of prana and the life wind of air. Ram is red and brilliant ruby like pure fire. Bum is white like pure, expansive ocean of water that radiates through space. Lam is like the golden ground of the earth, which provides the support for all things. And so these are the five pure lights. As you say each element, imagine that the bindu in your heart changes to its particular color, whether that's through the syllable ah, through the syllable e, yam, ram, bam, or through the simple bindu. Therefore, as you say om e shuddhe, you see blue, and the blue radiates through all of your channels, and it totally purifies the element of space within you. And then from each of your pores, deep blue lapis light purifies and radiates in your house, and then in your environment, your neighborhood, the whole area and land. And it provides an elemental balance for those spirits that exist and live upon the land, as well as for yourself and your own internal body, so that you can practice. One of the reasons for doing this is because all of our perception arises out of the base of interdependence or emptiness, called the Choying, or the Dharma Dhatu. When we are unconfused, from the Choying arise five pure wisdom lights, and these wisdom lights form all of our experience. If we perceive self and other, then the wisdom lights take on the form of our karmic habituations, and that's everything that we see in our life. But as we purify these subtle elements, more and more we open up to the interdependent truth of our natural condition and the way things really are. And purify our grasping to self and others through perceiving the five lights in a pure way. And so that's why we do this. So together, let's purify the five elements with its particular mode of song. Om e ho shuddhe shodanaye soha. Om yam shuddhe Shude Shodanaye So Om Ram Shude Shodanaye Soha Om Ram Shude Shodanaye Soha Om Ram Shude Shodanaye Soha Om Eyam Rambam Lam Shude Shoda Naye So. And so I did it in a tuneful way, right? It's a little quicker, but you can go in a more relaxed way and sound it slowly, slowly if you like. Om Ho Shode Shodanaye So. And then relax and let each element purify and clarify the environment. And the mantras as well, you can shorten Om E Ho Shuddhe, and then you can just go to the next one, Yam Ho Shuddhe. So you don't have to. So you don't have to do the whole mantra, but if you want to, you can. And it can be Om E Ho Shuddhe Shuddhe, which is essentially like expand, expand, and purify all things. Shuddhe Shuddhe Shodhanaye, essentially. If you Shuddhe Shodhanaye is fine as well. 2 or 1 are both in the tantric texts. So it's what you have time for, it's what you have capacity for, is okay. It's fine. And so this is how we purify the elements. So then let's talk a little bit about refuge. So the outer refuge is the refuge in the 3 jewels. The Buddha, which is the historical Shakyamuni Buddha, but as well as all Buddhas that have come and taught the path, purified their own minds, and compassionately helped other beings. What they have taught, which is the Dharma, the truth of purifying our minds of self and other, and reversing samsara into liberation. And the Sangha, our brothers and sisters, whether it's through refuge in bodhicitta or through samaya vows, our Vajra brothers, sisters, our Vajra fathers, grandfathers, our Vajra mothers and grandmothers, who are our teachers and their teachers' teachers, which is, I should say, forms our Vajra Kula. Kula is something like a tribe, and a Vajra Kula is something like our Vajra family, which is foremost in our minds of respect and helping one another. And it allows us to train very closely within a vowed way to understand interdependence so that we can expand this love and compassion to all beings through our tujje kula, tujje simpa, for our enlightened mind, our heart essence of awareness through compassion that we send to others through the paramitas, through teaching, through training, through practical actions, etc. So for now, of course, we gave Namo Guru, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Triratnaya. Okay, so Namo is like homage to, so that's the short form of I take refuge in. So I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. In the triple gem, I take refuge. And so you can say it either way. There's lots of ways of saying refuge. If you want to make it more verbose and expansive, then you can. And there's long texts, and you'll see that in sadhanas we give that are very long, taking refuge. That's very good. And then there's very short taking of refuge. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sangha, Namo Triranaya. So this is how you take refuge in the outer way, and for our sadhanas now, it's just fine. It's perfect. Um, so there's been some questions about vows, or what are vows. In all the empowerments, when you say Namo Guru Be, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, etc., you are taking refuge. Once you have said that in the context of empowerment, through the interdependence with the teacher, setting up the connections to see and understand and abide within your own liberated state, then you've taken refuge. If you have generated bodhicitta vows with the Guru and the empowerment, and of course you will in all empowerments, then you have taken the bodhisattva vows. They're inherent within the empowerment. There's no way to receive empowerments without these at all. So it's not like you've half taken them, or you will have to take them more formally in the future. If you've had empowerments, you have had them. You've essentially converted in one way of looking at it. But all that means is that you've recognized interdependence, and you're going to do your best in the practice to gain the higher and lower siddhis, help yourself, help your community, and help all beings. It's not more complicated. So, but you should, when you get a chance, take formal vows of refuge, formal bodhisattva vows. And of course, we will be giving more extensive empowerments in which all 14 root vows and 22 branch vows, as well as specific traditional vows for the deities, will be given. The samaya depends upon the teacher. In shorter empowerments, the teacher may give samaya that is a few recitations of the mantra. The teacher may say, bodhicitta is the samaya. But this isn't a cop-out. There's no empowerment without samaya. There's no way you can say this is just a blessing. Some teachers say that. They say, this is just a blessing empowerment. Don't worry about any kind of commitment, but you cannot take an empowerment without establishing a commitment. If that's the idea, then you haven't received the blessing at all. So you have to establish samaya. So if a teacher says bodhicitta is the samaya, that's the samaya. And you should take it seriously to develop that within yourself on a daily basis in order to keep and sustain that samaya. Because now bodhicitta and compassion toward others, as well as developing the expansive open mind of liberation, is tied up in the samaya of Tantra. And so bodhicitta toward others is like the very actions of the deity. And spontaneous sorcery can arise from this. It's not just the same anymore as your regular bodhisattva vows. And in the same way, constantly being forgetful of bodhicitta is breaking your samaya on a tantric level, which can harm health, harm your practice detrimentally, and those sorts of things. So you should develop whatever samaya is given, but there are formal samaya vows. And in the future, I'll do a talk on what these vows really mean, what they really are, especially to those who have taken an empowerment and taken the tantric vows. The great Sakya Pandita wrote for the Sarma school the fundamental understanding of what these vows are, called the differentiation, the clear differentiation of the three vows. And Federico, our Sakya teacher, who knows that tradition well, would be the one, if he has time and is willing to teach upon that, at least give an introduction of what that is and what those vows are. And as far as the ancient schools, the Precious Vase by Namkhai Norbu, as well as a thorough treatment called the Complete Nyingma Teachings, goes deeply into what those vows are, but it's not that different, and we'll go into it. So what are the other levels of taking refuge? Well, there's the inner refuge, and when you receive the higher tantras, it's Namo Guru Be, Namo Deva Be, Namo Dakini Be. So you take refuge in the Guru, in the Deva, and the Dakini. And we'll go more into what that means. But essentially, the Guru is your own nature, your own mind of enlightenment, as well as the expression of the nature of enlightenment of the deity before you, the representation of the lineage, who is the Guru. Then there's the Yidam, who is the source of all higher and magical attainments, and purifies the mind so that you can see the world with pure vision. Everything, in other words, becomes the mandala of the deity. And then there is the Dakini, that is the source of miracles and the source of the enlightened activities, the four sorceries. And there's many ways of formulating this, but it's also essentially that you're taking refuge in the Guru, in the community that arises from the enlightened mind, and in the actions of Tantra which permeate the world with wonder. and with siddhis, with blessings. And so then you have the secret refuge with Om, Ah, Hum. This is with your 3 doors, your mind, your throat, your heart, your forehead, your throat, and your heart. These are the doors of the Dharmakaya, which is the ultimate emptiness of all things. The Sambhogakaya, the expressive energy, which arises both as the deities and as the channels within your own body. And the Nirmanakaya, which is the purified form of the teachers that come and your own purified physical body as you practice and work. And then with Ah, you relax in the innermost secret, taking refuge in the mind of awareness, Rigpa. And we'll go more into those. For now, it's sufficient to focus on the outer refuge, and then we'll slowly work into the inner tantras and the meanings of inner refuge. If you like, of course, you can always use all 3 forms, Namo Gurube, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, and then Namo Gurube, Namo Devabe, Om Ahum Ah. This is the profound 4-fold taking of refuge. And of course, always use the actual texts of refuge, if you have them, that spell it out in words, if you like, in a more formal way. So now let's talk about mudras. Someone asked about mudras. So Federico is going to get something together about the Sarma mudras, especially in the Sakya. There's variations on mudras, just like there's variations on all of this. The one thing about Vajrayana is it's called the path of upaya, or skillful means mixed with prajna, or higher wisdom. The upaya aspect of skillful means that if there's an individual with specific needs, there's something in Vajrayana for that individual. And because of this, you have all of these proliferating different instructions. In the Anu Yoga, you have a way of doing offering mudras. So I'm going to show in the Anu Yoga. So which should you use? Which is right? All of them. And you should use, first off, you should find out which class of Tantra your text is from, and you should use those. But if you have a certain proclivity to using one set, it's fine. You can use that. That's what we call a karmic tendency. You should use what betters your practice. You should use what you will practice. So there's this motion, right? When you're doing the Om, Vajra, Argam, Padyam, Pushpe, Dupe, you're going with these different mudras and visualizations. There's a motion that looks very, it flows, and it's essentially that you're calling forth the offerings and dispatching them. In the elaborate way, what you're doing is you're in the form of the deity, or you're in a purified form of yourself and the deities in front, and you're calling forth to yourself all of the offering goddesses who are beautifully dressed in Sambhogakaya form with silks and jewels, their hair bound up, and there's hundreds, there's thousands of them, and they're emanating from the pores of your body or from your heart, and they're carrying these offerings as you do the mudra, and they're delivering them to the deities. And then you can see the deities receive them. If you're practicing higher tantras, especially in the lower tantras, sometimes they just are absorbed into them. But some of the lower, which are tantras with more external actions, such as yoga tantra, will have their tongues come out, and it's in the higher tantras too. Their tongues come out like tubes of light, and they enter the offering and they drink it, and their tongues come back in. So that's the visualization. But it can be as simple as 5 colors radiate out from your body, and these 5 colors become the offerings. This is another simple way of doing it. So the hand mudras is something like, I start with my left hand because it's in the tantras to do so. Sometimes in Anu Yoga, you'll see people start with their right hand because it has to do with the solar and lunar channels and instructions from their teacher. But due to commitments, I start with my left hand, and then this hand is flat. So I'm going to try to show you. It's like this comes up, and this hand is flat, and then it switches, right? You can see. And you're calling forth, and you're dispatching the offerings. And this is the Anu Yoga way. You won't see this necessarily in all of the other schools. Okay. So while you're doing that, when you use each, you'll use a particular mantra. So Argam, right? Water to drink. Okay. So it's like, you have your thumbs together, you're your middle fingers are slightly bent, your inner fingers are touching the joints, right? And it's like a little pool of water, right? And then with, sometimes there's also water for the feet, but generally it's water to drink, so it brings water to their mouths. And then the fingers go on the outside and the thumbs go back and your hands form a pool. And then it's water for bathing. Okay? So water to drink, water for bathing. All right? And then pushpe is flowers. And so you bring it up like you're gathering bouquets and they explode into the air with blooms. You're gathering and you're throwing flowers and they go everywhere and the offering goddesses bring them everywhere. Okay? So Argam, Padyam, Pushpe, and then Dupe is incense. So you're going to put your thumbs at your ring finger and you're going to close the other fingers around it. And you're going to have your two fingers up and they're moving like this because it's whiffs of smoke. Dupe. All right? And then you're going to put all your fingers in for the next offering. Your hand like that, leaving it like this with your thumbs up. And this is aloke, or lamps. Fingers are moving because the lamps, the fire is flickering, right? So then you have, and there's two ways to do this, gande. Right? So gande is like perfumed water or perfume or nice scents. Yeah. Something to put on the deity to freshen them, right? So in one form of the Anu Yoga, the two are just together, like this, like you're sprinkling it. But you don't have to do this movement, but that's what it's, you're taking a drop of finely scented water. And in the other, you take the finely scented water and you turn your hand. So it's like this, right? So you can do whichever way is comfortable. And then Naivedya is offerings of food. And so there's two again in the Anu Yoga. You can simply offer like you're offering a plate, or you can put your ring finger touching together, your thumb, and then you offer this way, like you're offering food. Okay? And then finally, there's Shabda, that's music. And you see these goddesses playing the damaru, they're playing drums, flutes, all kinds of music. And the mudra is like drums, like this. And they just flow out from you, yeah? So that's the offering mudras. Sometimes you'll see pratishta or pratishta dharma or pratishta dharma dhatu, which indicates that it comes from the dharma or it comes from the base of all existence. And with that, you do the prayer mudra. This is good to know too. The prayer mudra, always you put your thumbs together inside of your hand. Okay? So let's do the whole thing. Om Vajrargam Padam Pushpe Dupe Aloke Gande Vidya Shabda Ahum. Now that's how to combine them all together. First, what I would recommend you do is you do a mudra for each of the offerings. So, Om Vajrargam Ahum. Om Vajrapadyam Ahum. Om Vajra Pushpe Ahum. Om Vajra Dupe Ahum. Om Vajra Aloke Ahum. Vajra Gande Om Vajra Navidya Om Vajra Shamda Ahom Pratishta Dharmandantu Soha. And so that's generally how you give the offerings. For now, it's okay to externally give the offerings and click, and it seals it. You can also give them to yourself in the Anuyogas when you're fully generated and you're fully to maintain divine pride, which means you understand that your own nature is the same as the deity. Not that you're some kind of god, don't be a psychopath, but understand that your own primordial nature is the same nature as the deity. And in that space, you can imagine that the offerings not only go out, but they come to you as well. And you can give offerings that way. There's what's called inner offerings, and there's secret offerings. But we'll talk about that later in the context of empowerment and teaching. So these are the offerings. So that is all for today. I hope this has been informative on some of the basics. We are getting a prayer book together. We'll have a prayer book with basic prayers with some of these instructions in it. And hopefully you can enjoy that and add these things to your practices. And for those that are new, I hope it's been enjoyable to learn this so that you can apply it. For those who know all this, hopefully it's been a good refresher, yeah. And maybe you've seen something new, since all traditions are different. So I hope everyone's doing well. Everything here in Northeast Georgia is locked down and shut down, and we're not allowed out of our homes, which is a very good thing. I'm doing well. My wife's an essential employee, so she has to work, but we're cautious and we're confident, and we think it'll be okay. And so I hope that you're doing well wherever you are. Obviously, all of the people who do haircuts are closed, and I am turning into a householder yogi before my very eyes. So I wish you the best. All my prayers and intentions that you fully liberate and realize your nature and become Buddhas as fast as possible to help practitioners like myself. So, Sarva Mangalam, my friends.